You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined after a busy midweek Champions League action by Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. Quick shout out to Mark O'Haire, landed his long shot and his best bets as well. And both Adrian's long shot and best bets were both ruined by Galatasaray. So, Adrian, look, it's always learning every week. Do you know what I mean? But the guys have picked a lot of interesting angles, some big prices as well, for what is a pretty decent weekend of Premier League action. So just before we get going, I want to point you in direction and a quick reminder of our new customer offer. We see a load of people on the podcast. If you'd like to get involved in the Match with Betting Exchange, even if you've never bet on an exchange, we do have the benefits of that exchange pricing, which some of the selections this today will show you, but also we have the benefits of a sportsbook as well with Bet Builders. Enter the bonus code POD50 POD50 and get £50 worth in free bets when you bet £50. Full T's and C's available on matchbook.com/promotions. And one thing I'm awful at asking, if you can take 2 seconds, hit that like button. I think we're around the 50 mark. The last time, anything more than that helps us basically get our content out to a wider audience. Mark, Adrian, we have a lot to get through. Let's start with Chelsea versus Arsenal. So, Adrian, I feel like I start with you every week, but just right now, the team is Arsenal are, doing okay. It was a brilliant performance against Bayern, brilliant performance against Spurs. This is a different test. And obviously Chelsea have had that win against Barcelona. And as I was trying to make the case to Mark off air, Stamford Bridge and big games under lights, there is a sneaky good atmosphere, I think.
Yeah, it won't be easy, that's for sure. But Arsenal certainly won't be afraid of going to Chelsea. They are the best team in Europe at the moment. I don't think there's any real doubt about that. Arsenal are in magnificent form. That second half against Bayern was genuinely outstanding. It was quite tactical in the first half. Bayern looked the better side, but Arsenal, they didn't really create much apart from the brilliant goal they scored. And then second half, Arsenal just trampled all over them. And that's what they can do, Arsenal. They can win two ways. They can soak up pressure and counter, which they might do at times against Chelsea, because they'll know that Chelsea want a high line, they want space to run into. So I don't think Arsenal will come out all guns blazing there. But if they need to flick that switch and be aggressive and dominate and be assertive, they can do it. If they can do it to Bayern Munich, they can definitely do it to Chelsea. So Arsenal have a good record against Chelsea. Arteta certainly does. He's won 7 of 12 against him. Only 2 managers in the history of the Premier League have a better record against Chelsea: Kenny Dalglish and Pep Guardiola. So, there's a lot of confidence that's going to be taken into the game. Can't write off Chelsea. They've scored in 11 of 12 games. We know the wingers are excellent, particularly Esteval. But I like Garnacho. I like Neto. I would imagine Joao Pedro comes back in for this. But I suppose he could go with Liam Delap. We'll have to wait and see. But what I'll say on that is that if any team is equipped to handle Chelsea's wide players, I probably would say it's Arsenal. Timber and Calafiori both having phenomenal campaigns. So, I'm really confident. I know I probably shouldn't be. I know I should be shying away from this and saying this is a really difficult game because it has potential to be. Of course it does, because of Chelsea's talent. But like I say, I look at those wingers. I think Arsenal have got fullbacks that can handle them. You look at Chelsea's other big strength, central midfield, with Enzo and Caicedo, and then I look at Rice and Zubimendi and think, well, I wouldn't swap those two. So, and then if you can get at Chelsea's back four and goalkeeper, I absolutely think that there are vulnerabilities there. So, Chelsea keep scoring first. That's the problem. So if Arsenal can avoid that happening and having to chase the game, they'll be in a good position. I think it's 7 games in a row Chelsea have won after scoring. Well, they've scored first in. But you look at Chelsea's record, by the way, against top half teams. Lost to Brighton and Sunderland at home. Lost to Man U, albeit with 10 players. Drew with Palace. And then they did win at Spurs. So they still haven't taken that many big scalps. I know they beat Liverpool, but everyone's beating them at the moment, aren't they? So, I think with Chelsea's form better away, they've earned more points away from home, and Arsenal in the kind of nick that they are at the moment. I have to be on Arsenal here. Arsenal to win under 4.5 goals, because I don't imagine it being goals galore here. I think Arsenal will be quite pragmatic early on in the game to quieten the crowd, and I think they'll grow into it and maybe win the game. So yeah, Arsenal and under 4.5 goals, 2.68 is my tip.
Okay, 268 there. Good price. You can back that on the Matchbook betting exchange. Markets, just go to other and you'll see all those options there. And Mark, Adrian's confident of Arsenal to win. I know you're not as much. Give us the reservations. I mean, I thought that midfield point is interesting. I mean, probably is the two best centre mid partnerships in the league anyway. I think most people would agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the point is, it's hard to sort of counteract it and say Arsenal won't win this game at all. But mine's obviously all led by the price and betting, and I think Arsenal sub 2.3 away at Chelsea doesn't really interest me. So for that reason, I'm quite happy to leave it alone. My data only goes back to 2014, but this is the biggest price Chelsea have been at home to Arsenal in that time period. So look, I said midweek, I think Adrian backed me up as well. We didn't believe Chelsea are the second best team in the Premier League. I don't believe they're title challengers. That they might be second in the league and they might have just turned over Barcelona and done so quite impressively. But Barca did not turn up. They were not at it at all. They're absolutely appalling. And Chelsea picked them off quite comfortably, really. Obviously, that result will give them a big amount of confidence coming into this weekend. They do have the extra day's rest. And Arsenal have had a taxing schedule. The North London derby, as easy as it was, is quite an emotional day. Then you've got Bayern Munich a day later than when Chelsea played. Chelsea have obviously been away to Burnley and then hosted a Barca side who went down to 10 men. That extra bit of physicality may work in their favour. So there's a couple of reasons there. They do have a dreadful record against Arsenal, a more recent record, just 1 win in 11, 7 defeats in that sample. But if you look at the Bridge, winless in 6 against Arsenal, 3 of which were drawn, and that draw price is the one that stands out to me most at 3.5. More due to Arsenal's record of avoiding defeat and knowing how Mikel Arteta likes to approach these big games, which is let's not get beaten first and foremost. And then, as Adrian says, perhaps when we sort of find our way into this match, try and win the game. But, go back to the game against Liverpool at Anfield, where it was heading for a draw for about half an hour, really. And then it's settled by a superb free kick. You look at Arsenal's record last season at top half teams, 5 draws in those 9 games, just the 2 victories. This term, they narrowly won at Newcastle and Man United, lost narrowly at Liverpool, drew at Sunderland. So for as good as they are, they do rarely sort of cut loose, but they're also rarely ever beaten. Just 5 defeats in the Premier League and 50 going back to the start of last season, 3 in 25 away games. Injuries are starting to recover. Nice to see Odegaard back, Madueke making an impact again, Martinelli too. Havertz and Gyökeres sound like they're coming back soon enough too. So super strong defensively, plenty of options going forward. They are most likely winners, I'd say, but I'm not willing to back them at that price. The bet I did kind of write down or scribble down before going towards the draw here was Arsenal double chance and under 3.5 goals. Matches away from the Emirates rarely do escalate into shootouts. 72% of their 25 away days have gone under 3.5 goals since the start of last season. Last season's meetings, 1-1 at the Bridge, 1-0 to Arsenal at the Emirates. That was 1.8, but I think the bigger price appeals to me more. So, yeah, quite happy to back it. It's been a winner in 9 of Arsenal's 25 away days since the beginning of last season. So that's 36% of their away games have ended all square. And I think a couple of the matches this season, particularly Newcastle and Liverpool, the big matches, could easily have ended all square as well, but didn't. So, yeah, quite happy to support that draw price at 3.5.
Yeah, 5 to 2 and all money there. The price and the draw does seem a tad big. So for the £10 money back bet builder special, you've done enough to convince me, Adrian, with that confident selection on Arsenal, because you don't, despite what people tell me in the comments, you don't always go pro Arsenal. So Arsenal to win under 4.5 goals, and we'll throw in the under 5.5 cards that gets up the price to 2-1 3.0. Anthony Taylor is reffing the game. Need I say no more? So definitely might have a flutter on 0, 1 or 2 cards in that game too. Everton versus Newcastle, 5:30 on Saturday. Mark, we'll start with you. Manchester United versus Everton Monday Night Football was a game I thought that was defining for Amarin in the sense that they'd such this huge momentum. They go down to 10 men. I was trying to say to as many people as possible, if Amarin knew he was starting the game against 10 men, surely he wouldn't have picked that same team. But obviously, given his substitutions, he probably would have, in which case you've got to ask serious questions about
it. Yeah, I think it was just a collective shit show, to be honest. If I'm struggling for words, it wasn't just hammering; it was the individuals. I mean, we'll get to Man United later in the show.
Yeah. Sorry, I've gone too early. I just got so caught up in the hammering chat. But a massive win for Everton and David Moyes on the other hand.
Yeah, from Everton's perspective, superb. Back-to-back wins to 0. I thought they were excellent in, they weren't massively tested, but the way in which they set up after the brainless red card. Dewsbury Hall was tireless, playing a bit of a deeper role after that red, and obviously his goal was superb. I thought Grealish and Jai put in a real shift, playing as almost secondary fullbacks in the second half. Tiano Barry, I think, is starting to adapt to Premier League life, so they've got a focal point up there. Jordan Pickford made some really smart stops. Michael Keane even playing really well. I thought his days as a top flight player was long gone, but he's excelling. So you could see the meaning of that result and the way in which they celebrated it afterwards. They'll be able to sort of dust themselves down, get back to the Hill Dickinson this weekend, and I think they'll fancy their chances. And I fancy their chances too at the prices, to be honest. Performances haven't always matched their results at their new home, but they have only lost once in their new surroundings. And they're going off a similar price here against Newcastle as Brentford were in similar circumstances a few weeks back, when Newcastle went away to Brentford off a Champions League week and were well beaten, actually. And I think Everton are a slightly better team than Brentford. And so I'm quite happy to be pro Everton here. I'm going to put Everton up to in the draw no bet, or the 0.0 Asian handicap line here at odds against 2.1. So we get our stakes back if the game ends in a draw. If Everton win, we get paid out. And that's a price and a play that really does appeal to me, because Newcastle, as we know, do tend to rise to the occasion at St James's Park, particularly against the big teams. We saw them beat Man City in a helter-skelter game last weekend, then failed to back it up away from home midweek in Marseille. That match kind of followed a familiar pattern, really. It started well, and then just whether it's physical, emotional, whatever it is, just unable to last the distance, really. And Eddie Howe changed his system in midweek in France, went 3-5-2, and it worked pretty well. Marseille were on the back foot, but as soon as they got to grips with that sort of systematic change, they seized control. Nick Pope made a glaring error, handed the initiative, and Marseille never looked back. So it's 4 straight away defeats now for Newcastle: Brighton, West Ham, Brentford, and Marseille. And if you look at their away record for a little bit longer, it's 9 games without a win away from home in the Premier League, 3 goals in 6 away games this season. Small sample alert, of course, but in away games immediately following Champions League football under Eddie Howe, Newcastle have won just once, and I believe that game was a Sheffield United match, who are historically one of the worst teams we've seen in the Premier League. So, I'm quite happy to oppose them here. That midfield, we talk about it all the time, hasn't been consistent enough. They were at it against Man City last week. Even Joel Linton, who's had a pretty poor season by his standards, was superb. Tonali and Bruno really stepped up, but they haven't always been at it away from home. And I think as soon as they lose that physicality, they start losing these battles. And I think Everton will be right at it. So, happy to be pro Everton here, plus 0.0 on the Asian handicap, 2.1.
Okay, competitively priced there as well, as I touched on. Good morning to Kevin, who's watching live from Florida. Always love seeing these sort of comments. So do comment where you're watching, either watching live or listening on the podcast. Mark alluded to this, Adrian. Is it too simple to say, as he said, Newcastle can get up for those big games and perform like a home to Manchester City, but away from home, even Marseille during the week, they might even take the lead in some of these games, but they can't see it out and they can't get the 3 points?
Yeah, they're a funny team, aren't they, Newcastle? Like you say, when they're at it, when that midfield is clicking, they're a nightmare to play against and really hard to beat. And they need to be like that more often. And it can't just be the St James's Park factor and the atmosphere and all that nonsense. It can't, they've got to be better than that, Newcastle. I mean, this is going to be a big game. It's a huge stadium. It's their first visit there. It's a tough game against a team in form. So Newcastle should be bang up for this. This is a big game. It's a tough game. And I think they should, they should bring it. And if they do, they've got a chance of winning it, no matter how well Everton are playing. Player for player, I think Newcastle are a stronger team than Everton, so they've got a chance. Even though I'd endorse, what Mark was saying. I'm not as confident in Everton. I think that Newcastle are capable of going there and getting a result. So I'm going to steer clear of the result. But it's obvious that Newcastle have an issue away from home. Just 3 goals scored in 6 road trip matches in the Premier League this season. You know, that's not great. They have been scoring a few more goals of late. They've been involved in some sort of both teams to score kind of matches. But, you know, I'm also thinking back to earlier in the season where they had those 3 consecutive goalless draws away from home. So they are capable of keeping things tight on the road when they put their mind to it, Newcastle United. So I'm leaning towards unders. That's the first part of my bet, under 3.5 goals. It's landed in 8 of 12 matches for Newcastle this season. It's landed in 11 of 12 matches for Everton. So, you know, they really aren't involved in many high-scoring affairs. For obvious reasons, it's David Moyes. He's going to keep things nice and tight. And let's be honest, they have to, because even though Barry is getting better, they don't have a massive goal threat, do they? Yeah, and Jai, Dewsbury Hall, Grealish, they're all brilliant players. I love them. But, yeah, they're just not going to score a stack of goals this season, Everton. All of Everton's matches at Hill Dickinson Stadium have gone under 3.5 goals in the Premier League. And 4 of those 6 have gone under 2.5 as well. So I feel quite strongly that this will be a low-scoring affair. I want to pair it, just to boost the price, I want to pair it with under 5.5 Everton corners. So if they get 6 corners or more, we're bust. But that doesn't happen very often with Everton, home or away. Everton have the 3rd lowest number of corners this season. They're averaging 3.83. At home, they're actually on this line. 5.5 is their average. But they haven't played many top sides there yet. I would say they've had quite a gentle-ish introduction to life in their new sort of habitat and surroundings. Newcastle will be one of the strongest teams that's come there. So I'm confident that they'll dip under that particular average. And I think that Everton will kind of set off a little bit, not lots, but they know that what Newcastle want is for you to come onto them, so that then they can win the ball back and go bang. You know, strike hard and fast down the sides with the wingers. Newcastle are better when they have less of the ball. Everton aren't daft. Moyes isn't daft. They will let Newcastle have the ball because that is the type of match that it doesn't necessarily suit them. So in that sense, it works for the low count on Everton corners as well. So yeah, if you pair under 3.5 goals with under 5.5 corners for Everton, it's even money, 2.0.
Okay, and that jump is from 134, which is under 3.5 goals. So massive jump there, particularly some of the stats on Everton corners. We'll move on to Crystal Palace versus Manchester United. And Mark, I'll basically throw what I just said in the first one and got carried away and forgot to bring it back to Everton for Amrin and Manchester United on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say? Yeah, I mean, going down to 10 men, Everton early doors, you expect it to be a sort of one-sided contest from there. And I guess if you didn't watch the game and just looked at the stats, you would see Man United won the shot count 25-3. Everton scored a wonder goal, didn't do a huge amount else in attack thereafter. Pickford has to make a few worldy saves. I guess if you didn't watch it, you'd assume that United were the real dominant force and very unfortunate not to win that game. It was anything but, to be honest. The first half was abysmal. For most of the match, United looked like they'd never even played together before. The attacks were disjointed. The passes went astray. Players were also ambling around as if it was an end-of-season friendly in that second half. There was no urgency about their performance, and I think that was quite frustrating from a United supporters' perspective. So desperately disappointing, hugely frustrating. I know there was no Cunha, no Sesko, but even still, you expect a lot better. And yeah, the changes Amarin made were confusing at times. But look, I still believe in him as a head coach, but it's becoming difficult, even more difficult by the month. His record now at Manchester United in the Premier League: 12 wins, 9 draws, 18 defeats. And I think what's most concerning is they tend to be at their best or their most efficient at Old Trafford. So that's a real bump in the road for United. They're back on the road this weekend, and for me, they're quite easily opposed at the prices and lines. Fortunately for United, Palace have a tough European assignment against Strasbourg on Thursday night. But even still, they've got a great record against United. 2 defeats in 8 head-to-heads. They're also unbeaten in 5 home games against United, where they've kept United scoreless in 4 of those trips to Selhurst Park. And yeah, I'm just quite happy to be pro Crystal Palace here because Manchester United do not win games away from home often enough. 1 win in 11 away Premier League matches, 6 of which ended in defeat. Go back further to the start of last season, 5 Premier League wins in 25 away games, 11 defeats, 5 clean sheets. That is really quite feeble and actually quite pathetic for a team of their stature. So, this is quite a confident selection to be with Palace, plus 0-0 on the Asian handicap. Palace draw no bet at 1.8. Forget the budget, forget the individuals. Palace are a much more astute, more trustworthy team, the better football team right now in almost every aspect, in my opinion. And the market's not suggesting they are. If this match was taking place at neutral venue, United would be favourites, and I would argue against that. So we talk about United's dreadful record on the road. It's worth highlighting how good Palace have been in the Premier League for quite a long time now. 42 Premier League games, home or away, 8 defeats. Unbeaten in 12 at Selhurst, 6 wins in that sample. This season, only Arsenal have conceded fewer goals. Van Palace have kept 6 clean sheets in 12. They also sit 4th on expected points. All of that is better than Manchester United. They've won the non-penalty expected goals battle in 9 of 12, including all 6 at Selhurst Park. They're not getting the respect they deserve by the market right now. Man United, 1 clean sheet all season, giving up the 5th most non-penalty expected goals in the Premier League. So you're requiring 2s and 3s to get victories, and Palace just don't allow their opposition those kind of opportunities. So it's quite a straightforward selection for me and a confident one too. Palace draw no bet 1.8.
Yeah, Adrian, do you agree that Crystal Palace right now are just a better team than Manchester United?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think they're an excellent team, particularly without the ball. It's so hard to break down. The fact that they've got the second best defensive record speaks volumes. Really, their shape is so good, and they block the passes into midfield, and they'll have a game plan. They'll work out how to nullify Bruno or Seshko Cunha and Burmo. These guys, if they're fit and available, they'll have a plan in place. Because Glasner leaves no stone unturned. I think they're a really awkward team to play against, and I mean the numbers would back that out. Mark's spat out most of the good data. I think they're in 11 of 12 Palace games this season, they've been under 3.5 goals. So they really do keep things nice and tight. They are tough to break down. Just to give you an idea, Man U haven't scored in 4 matches against Crystal Palace. So, it's a team that they find really hard to play against. I think it will be difficult for them again. Mark's talked about how bad United have been away from home, how good Palace are at Selhurst Park, unbeaten in 12. Everything points to me towards Palace certainly not losing the game. I think they don't score that many goals, do they, against the better teams? That's the only issue for me with Crystal Palace. They blanked at Chelsea and Arsenal. They blanked at home to Brighton, and against Sunderland as well. So, they've sometimes you can't guarantee goals with Crystal Palace, but you can almost certainly guarantee that they won't let in many. I think Bournemouth, that's wild 3-3 draw is the only game where things have got a little bit out of control. So, I like Palace double chance here, which is effectively the same as Mark, isn't it, with that draw no bet. But if you pair it with pair Palace double chance with under 3.5 goals, it comes out 2.05. As I said, Palace, almost all of their games go under. Manchester United have been involved in some better games lately. Both teams to score has been landed in a lot of their fixtures, but on the road, they haven't been creating very much. And I think they'll find it tough going down there in South London. So 2.05 Palace double chance under 3.5.
And a couple of key injuries missing as well. We'll move on to West Ham versus Liverpool. And Adrian, we'll stick with you. This is probably as bad a week as Liverpool have had this season, given the results. I mean, to lose both games by 3 goals, they go into this game away to West Ham. Normally, you look at away West Ham going chance to get 3 points back on track. Where are you at currently with this Liverpool team?
I don't know where anyone is at with this Liverpool team. I mean, it is an absolute crisis, isn't it? Losing 9 of their last 12. Liverpool fans are beside themselves, aren't they? They don't know how to feel because Slot took them to the title, but any manager that's lost 9 of 12, let alone for a big club that's spent £500 million, will be under massive pressure, if not gone by now. So they've got a really important decision to make. It feels like it's much worse than I imagined. To lose by 3 at home to away to City, you can kind of excuse that, but then at home to Forest 3-0, And then PSV 4-1 is just a disaster, isn't it? And their confidence is shot to pieces. And, that's going to make life really difficult. What will be a hostile West Ham? I know that ground, that London Stadium gets a bit of stick, and it is too vast and it's too far away from the pitch. And I agree with all that. But when the atmosphere is good there, and when West Ham fans are behind their team, I tell you what, it isn't bad. It can be quite intimidating, and they will surely smell blood, West Ham here. They have to. I don't expect this to be a timid West Ham performance. If it is, then they're idiots, because you have to get after Liverpool at the moment. You have to get, test their weaknesses, and their weaknesses are clear with Konate and Kirkes having stinkers, and, an auxiliary right back. You have to get at them. And they kind of are playing with a bit more confidence at the moment, West Ham. They've scored 8 goals in their last 3 matches, which it's been a while since you could say that. They got 3 in their last 2 home games against Burnley, and then another 3 against Newcastle. So I think they'll be positive, more positive than maybe a lot of people imagine. West Ham games have actually averaged 3.33 goals this season, which is the highest of all the teams in the Premier League. Liverpool, 3.17, so the 3rd highest. So I am looking at this as a goals game, over 2.5 goals, and both teams to score. West Ham have only kept 1 clean sheet. Liverpool have only kept 3 clean sheets. I think despite Liverpool's woes, you would expect them to score, but you wouldn't expect a clean sheet given how they're performing and how West Ham have clicked going forward. So both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. I want to lock that in off the bat, but I want a better price. So what I'm going to do to get that better price is to bring in some cards. Basically have a bet on each team to get 1 card or more. So and that, I think, is going to be quite likely. The referee is Darren England, and he has carded both teams in every Premier League match that he's refereed this season. In the last 4 matches he's refereed, 6 cards, 2 cards, 5 cards, 5 cards. His average over the season is 4.14 cards a game. That's Darren England. And the cards boost both teams to scoring over 2.5 goals from 1.73 to 2.15. And I'm massively up for doing that. So yeah, I'm not sure how the game goes. I'm really not. I keep thinking Liverpool will turn it around, but I can't back them. But I'm reticent to back West Ham as well. So I'm going to sit on the fence and hope for a fun game that gets a little bit feisty.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, both teams to score over 2.5 goals, and both teams over 0.5 cards on the bet builder, 2.15. Adrian's pro goals. Mark, you're very much going to be pro West Ham. The only thing I can think of from Liverpool, I sat and watched the first game for 30 minutes. They did look like the old Liverpool. It's just once that sucker punch of a goal came, that was a PSV in the midweek. Obviously, different story.
Yeah, I would say I'm more anti-Liverpool than pro-West Ham. But yeah, I mean, it's quite extraordinary how their season has panned out, because if you go back to the start and we rule out the Community Shield, Liverpool started the season with 7 successive wins. And yes, they weren't always convincing in those 7 wins. But after making all those additions in the summer, I think most people were thinking this team is going to be very difficult to stop retaining their title. So to see where they are right now with 8 defeats in their last 11, their odds on to win 8 of those, it's quite remarkable, really. And I think, yeah, you're right. The Forest game could easily have gone a different way. If one of their 2 big blocked chances in the opening 15 minutes goes in, could easily have been a different game. But as you say, once the Forest opener went in, Liverpool never looked like getting a result in that game. And the amount of space they afforded Forest for the second and third goals was shocking, but also quite unsurprising based on what we've seen in the last few months. And Virgil van Dijk, speaking after the Forest match, said we were just not good enough in terms of the battles, the challenges, and the second ball fight. And that's quite concerning, really, because they're kind of non-negotiables you expect from your team at the highest level. You can talk about tactics, team selection, and everything else, but you expect a bit of battle, a bit of fight, a bit of attitude, especially if you're defending a title. But defensively now, 20 goals conceded in 12 league games. Only Burnley and West Ham have conceded more big chances. I think there's a lot wrong with the team right now. It's all very messy. And yeah, I think as a punter, I think it's very difficult to consider them a live bet at odds on quotes, even away at West Ham, where they've got a very good record. So This season, they've lost 5 of 8 away. They're odds on to win in 6 of those. But go further back in Liverpool's last 19 away games, 7 wins, 10 defeats. They're odds on favourites in 11 of those. In the last 20 away games, 3 clean sheets. I think when you are conceding that amount of goals, it's just so difficult to win football matches at the highest level. And quite happy to oppose them here. Unfortunately, I put my bet in on Wednesday night, or had my bet selected on Wednesday night. We're talking on Thursday afternoon. The market has moved following that PSV match. So West Ham +1 is now not available. I'll go the best next available selection, which is West Ham plus half a goal, which is 225. I think basically West Ham to avoid defeat here. I do like that. I think they are starting to show levels of improvement under Nuno. Obviously, back-to-back home wins for the first time in forever. And Callum Wilson leading the line now, looking in form, fit. He's definitely hungry because he wants to reach 100 league goals. And I think West Ham will employ a similarly kind of route one approach to what Forest did. I think they've got opportunities on the counter-attack to hurt them. And defensively, I just wouldn't back Liverpool to keep a clean sheet against anyone right now. So I know the data doesn't look good for West Ham last week, but the first half against Bournemouth was encouraging. They played pretty well. And I think Nuno was probably at fault really for West Ham not getting a result there, because he withdrew Callum Wilson in the 52nd minute, replaced him with Souček, and West Ham did not have another single shot after that substitution. They retreated into their own half, lacked a focal presence. Bournemouth turned up the volume, had 21 shots in the second half. And unlike at Forest, where he's got 2 really strong centre-halves to lock down matches, I don't think that is the case with West Ham. So that would be my concern. If West Ham do get in front, are they able to kind of close the game out? Probably not, but hopefully with a half-goal start, we at least get a win or a draw on side and odds against price. And yes, I did consider West Ham to win on the nose, but the price has been clipped in quite a lot in the last 24 hours as well. So that was a consideration for the long shot segment.
Yeah, that was a crazy sub both at the time and afterwards, trying to lock down a lead with Souček up front. West Ham plus half a goal in the Asian handicap. West Ham double chance effectively 2-2-3 for Mark. Any other bets? Adrian, I'm going to start with Ipswich, who finally living up to their favouritism for the championship this season. They've got, unfortunately, 10 points to find with Coventry if they win their game in hand. I think it was the Blackburn abandoned game. They are finding that bit of form, though, and they are away to Oxford this weekend.
They are, yeah. It's Friday night, actually. I'm at the game, if anyone wants to listen, on TalkSport, or TalkSport 2, I think it'll be on. I'm looking forward to the game, looking forward to seeing Ipswich, because they're on the charge, as I expected them to be. It's taken them a while, and they've still not really hit their groove at Portman Road, where they've sort of, their performance levels haven't been great. But on the road, much better. They've won their last 3 away games. Ipswich Town by an aggregate score of 10-2. They won actually 10-2. That was at Hull, Swansea, and Queen's Park Rangers. They also have perfect winning record against teams at the bottom end of the table. They've been good flat track bullies this season, home and away at Ipswich. Perfect 100% record against teams at the bottom, and Oxford are in the bottom 3 at the moment. Form's good, 1-4, drawn 2 of their last 6, home or away Ipswich. So I want to get them on side. They are 1.65, so it's a bit skinny. So I need to pair it with something, and I want to pair it with under 4.5 goals. Oxford, they're solid enough. They just lack a little bit of talent, really, particularly in the forward areas. They're actually quite solid defensively. They don't get walloped too often. Oxford United under Gary Rowett, who's sort of a well-known pragmatic type of manager. So I think Oxford are good enough to keep this very respectable and make it competitive. But I don't think they're good enough to win the game. They've only won once at home all season. 16 of Oxford's 17 matches have gone under 4.5 goals. So that tells a story in its own right, doesn't it? They've only actually scored 4 goals, Oxford themselves, in the last 5 matches in front of their own supporters at the Kassam. So not scoring goals at home is an issue. So Ipswich to win, under 4.5 goals. I like it. It boosts that 1.65 up to 1.91, which, I'm all over that.
Okay, second selection comes from League 2. Chesterfield are actually my League 2 team this season in my life-changing Trixie. All teams below where they need to be at the moment, but hanging on. Against the Swindon side, both these teams drawn last few games independently. You're expecting goals and fireworks.
Yeah, look, Swindon have been good to me this season on this podcast. I've gone in on the goals angle a few times, and I think the last time I went in on the over 2.5 goals, it came in after about 15 minutes. So I was punching the air with delight. It's not always like that, of course. So yeah, I like this for goals. Chesterfield, Swindon, two really attacking teams, two of the top scorers in League Two, but neither team is renowned for keeping clean sheets. You know, that they don't keep very many of them at all, actually, either side. Chesterfield of late have gone a little bit crazy. Their last 8 matches have averaged 4 goals over the course of the season. Chesterfield games averaged 3.41. Swindon games, by the way, averaged over 3 as well, 3.06. So the over 2.5 angle is an obvious one for me here, along with both teams to score, because they have great success rate. You know, the 71% of Chesterfield matches see both teams score. 65% of Swindon matches see both teams score. You know, they just don't blank very often. They've blanked once, Chesterfield, your mob. The Spireites have only blanked once in 17. Swindon have only blanked 3 times in 17. So, you know, they're used to scoring. They're not used to keeping clean sheets. I see this being, you know, a good game, good game to watch. So yeah, both teams to score over 2.5 at 1.92.
Okay, yeah, and hopefully Chesterfield managed to sneak a win, that 6-pointer in the promotion battle. If Premier League bets are your kind of thing, a listener of your 5 of the next 6 leading up to the end of the podcast are Premier League, starting with over 2.5 goals in 2 separate games. Mark, if you want to go back to back here, so is this a Premier League wide thing that you're trying to take advantage of, or is it just independent against specific angles in both matches?
A little bit of both, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, there's probably be 3 selections here because my long shot is heavily leaning towards a goal-heavy angle too, which I'll get to. And I would have normally put it up here on the show as well, but I've already got 2 as well. A lot to like, I think, in the Premier League this weekend. But yeah, the Premier League is averaging 273 goals per game. 57% of all matches have gone over 2.5 goals. So you turn that hit rate into implied odds, you'd look at a blanket price around 175 for over 2.5 goals. So I think if you get above 1.8, it's worth a second look. And yeah, starting with Brentford v Burnley, I think it deserves a good second look here and a bet, because over 2.5 goals is trading around 1.86. BTTS, I believe, is odds against. And yeah, I'm quite keen to support goals here. Brentford have been excellent at the G-Tech, really thriving in the sort of chaos that their game brings. Only Arsenal and City have won more home league games. Only Arsenal and City have scored more home league goals. Hugely impressive. And Igor Thiago is having an outstanding season, leading the line there. But we said in pre-season, all the evidence suggests Brentford really should struggle this season. But you've got to trust the decision makers at Brentford, because they're incredibly smart and astute. And yeah, the appointment of Keith Andrews seems to be working very well right now. Look, they probably will score a couple of goals here and hurt Burnley and probably win the game, but I just think they're a little bit too short to support. So the next best opportunity is to back goals in this game. So over 2.5 goals. They're playing a Burnley team who don't offer a huge amount of threat. They've got the lowest shot count in the Premier League, but they've got a knack of getting on the score sheet and making games of it away from home. So despite having a pretty tough schedule away from home, where they've played 3 of the big 6 away, as well as Aston Villa, they've scored at least twice in half of those games. They scored in 5 of those 6 as well. And Brentford have only kept 2 clean sheets of their own, the same figure as Burnley, actually. And Brentford have scored in 10 of 12. So I can definitely see both sides conceding. I don't have a huge amount of faith in either team defensively. But ultimately, I think even in Jadon Anthony, I know he's gone a bit cool lately, but Zan Fleming, great player. Adrian will know very well from his championship days, very capable of producing moments of magic from nothing. We've seen that already this season in the Premier League. And yeah, on Burnley, 6 away days, 4 of them have been pretty tough away days, and they've engineered 9 big chances. And as I say, they've scored at least twice in 3 of those 6 as well. So you can actually see them getting on the score sheet here and making a game of it. So over 2.5 goals there. 186. And moving on to Forest v Brighton, obviously the famous 7-0 game from last season. That's not going to be repeated, but Forest are starting to find their groove a bit under Sean Dyche. I think Brighton look overrated in the market here, but Forest involved in European action on Thursday. So again, my focus will be on goals. Overs trading at 193, a big price for a game involving Brighton, who are the traditional goal kings of the Premier League. Under Fabian Hürzeler, 70% of their league games have gone over, 40% have gone over 3.5 goals when playing away, 68% and 48% for over 2.5 and 3.5. 68% have seen both sides score. 25 away games under Hürzeler. They've scored in 22 and kept 6 clean sheets, 3.44 goals per game. So obviously to get the opportunity to back overs at almost evens stands out to me. Forest have scored 3 goals in back-to-back league games. And yeah, that clean sheet against Liverpool was their first in 19, going back to the 1st of April. And as we've already discussed, quite fortunate to do so based on the first half hour. Anderson clearing one off the line. Seltz made some saves. Murillo made a big block from Chiesa as well. So on the balance of play, they normally concede in that game. So I know Dyche will demand defensive solidity, but I also think that they are well capable of hurting teams and counter-attack opportunities as well. And if you look at their games this season, 5 of 6 at the City Ground have gone overs. So yeah, I'm happy to back over 2.5 goals at almost evens when Brighton go to Nottingham Forest. Got there in the end.
Okay, 188 is the price for Brentford Burnley and 194 the price for Forest Brighton. Both of those selections over 2.5 goals. Long shot time. And Adrian, there wasn't all bad for Spurs. Callum Umami got off the score sheet, or off the mark, sorry, for Spurs. Hasn't got a Premier League goal yet. They host a Fulham team. They want to be careful they don't get dragged into this relegation battle. So it's a big game for both clubs.
It is, yeah. And I'm just taking a little opportunity to just bash Spurs one more time. Really,
Why not,
yeah. Look, they were dreadful, weren't they, at Arsenal? And yeah, look, I was at Emirates last night for the Bayern game, so I've only seen the highlights of Spurs, and you know they looked all right. And I know that they were pressing higher, and it was a different system. I think probably more of a specific system for that game. But the mentality of the team was a bit braver, wasn't it? And it'd be really interesting to see what Thomas Frank does at the weekend. You know, I think that mentality is probably the one that Spurs fans want. They want to see a little bit more ambition. There've been not enough sort of progressive forward passes for Spurs this season from midfield. They've been terrible at home, haven't they? I mean, they've won 3. This predates Frank, of course, but they've won 3. Their last 20 home matches in the Premier League. They've lost 12. Their last 20 at home in the Premier League. It's so bad for Spurs, and their confidence isn't good. And obviously Frank is flip flopping tactically. You know, 4-4-2 narrow last night, 3-4-2-1 against Arsenal. In the match before that, it was 4-2-3-1. So he's flip flopping. What's he going to do? He has to do something because at home, Spurs just don't create enough chances. They've got the second lowest XG at home behind Burnley. They've had the second fewest shots at home behind Burnley. And they've had the second fewest shots on target at home behind Burnley. So, they are not giving opponents a tough enough time at all. And now it might suddenly click, of course, at this weekend, but confidence on the back of that horrible run and leaking 9 goals, by the way, this week, it's going to be fragile, isn't it? So can you imagine if they go 1 down as well, how toxic the atmosphere could be inside the ground. And Fulham aren't bad in terms of fast starts. They've got a poor away record, so it's hard to support them in that regard. But they did lead at Villa. They did lead at Bournemouth. Newcastle at St James's Park needed an injury time winner to see them off. They're a capable team. And I thought they played brilliantly against Sunderland. It was an absolute whooping, really. It was a 1-0 thrashing from Fulham. And I think that will give them a bit of confidence. They've obviously had the whole week to prep as well. Spurs have had to worry about going to Paris for that big game. And their tails are between their legs. So yeah, I'm gonna just tip up. There's a long shot, bit of fun for non-supporting Spurs fans. Fulham and over 1.5 goals. That's at 4.7. I mean, Fulham aren't in long shot territory themselves, which I think speaks volumes. But if you do think that they can win and it's not 1-0, then it bumps the price up quite nicely. So yeah, a little bit of fun. I think Spurs with their home record, backing against them isn't the silliest thing to do. So yeah, Fulham to win over 1.5 is 4.7.
3 wins in their last 20 Premier League games. Did you say home games? That's extraordinary.
Lost 12.
Extraordinary. Yeah, wow. Lost 12 in there. Wow. Mark, Fulham. We mentioned Fulham, Sunderland. Disappointing performance. Sort of went under the radar how dominant Fulham were there. but they do host a Bournemouth team that, you know, in and out at the moment, some good performances, some not so good. Good comeback against West Ham, for example. You like them in long shot territory, the home side that is Sunderland.
Yeah, well, I really like goals in this game. It's odds against 2.06 for over 2.5 goals, because whenever Bournemouth are involved, goals tend to follow, particularly away from home. But yeah, I think Sunderland might have. Well, they're one of those teams you want to get on side, I think, at the Stadium of Light this season. Unbeaten in 6, 3 wins, 3 draws. This is their first game back since the creditable points they earned against Arsenal in their last home game. So, yeah, I think they are well capable of bouncing back from that no-show at Fulham, where they only managed 4 shots. Because at the Stadium of Light, they've played 6 games. They've scored at least twice in 4 of those. 11 goals in total. They've scored in all 6 of those fixtures as well. And I expect them to get on the score sheet at least once against the Bournemouth team, who we've talked about a few times in recent weeks, being pretty hard and loose, more often than not at the minute, particularly on their travels. They've given up 94 shots in their last 7 matches and conceded 15 goals. And yeah, defensively away from home, it's just 3 clean sheets and 25 going back to the start of last season. 184 goals per game conceded in that same sample as well. They didn't defend West Ham's direct balls very well in the first half last weekend. Sunderland may try and replicate that, and I think they will cause them problems. This is a Bournemouth team who've conceded multiple goals in 5 of 6, 3 goals or 4 of 6 away. But they have scored in 10 of 12 themselves and 21 of the last 25 away games as well. So in terms of the over 2.5 goals, that's been a winner in 80% of Bournemouth's games going back to the start of last season. So I do like goals in this game, but I just fancy Sunderland to edge it slightly. 4 of their 6 at the Stadium of Light have seen both sides score, so you're not asking for a huge amount here. They're looking interesting underdogs around 2 to 1, but include both teams to score, and that price jumps to 6.6, which is a really attractive price. Just on Bournemouth, 16 goals conceded in 6 away games, 19 big chances conceded in 6 away games as well. So Sunderland aren't going to give you gallons of opportunities, but if you continue to ship big chances like that, then you're going to be punished. So, yeah, 6.6, Sunderland to win and both teams to score.
Okay, big old price there. In fairness, best bet time. Adrian, we've heard the case for the goals from Brentford, Burnley earlier on. Why do you think Brentford are value here to beat them alongside a goals angle?
Because Burnley are rubbish.
Bad worst angle.
Yeah, look, I don't want to bash Scott Parker or Burnley because they did brilliantly to make it to the Premier League.
Mark wants to come in there, Adrian. But go on, you keep going.
Mark does that. He does enough of that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the beef is. I'm not sure, but yeah.
I do, but anyway.
Yeah. I just think Brentford. Yeah. Okay, they're a short price. If you want to back Brentford on the nose, it's 1.49. Obviously, no interest in that. But if you pair it with Brentford to win and over 1.5 goals, it makes it 1.81. And I think that is definitely much more palatable. Mark's been talking up the chances of goals in this game. You know, Burnley have been involved. They've been quite fun away from home, haven't they? They've scored goals, have ultimately lost most of their games, but they have been a little bit more progressive. They did win at Wolves. But the bottom line is Burnley have conceded at least 2 goals in every single away game this season, 18 in total in 6 road trips. So it's averaging 3 against. And if they let in 3 here, they're not winning the league, and they're not winning the game. They've got the worst stats in the league. We know that, Burnley, in terms of expected goals and expected goals against. I think they're inevitably sliding into the sort of bottom 2, and I don't think they'll get out of that bottom 2 position. As for Brentford, what a tough run of home games they had to kick off the Keith Andrews regime. Villa, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, Liverpool and Newcastle have all been to the G-Tech this season, and Brentford have won 4, drawn 1 and lost 1. That is unbelievably impressive from them. Now, you could argue, well, they like the underdog tag, you know, they leave space for them to go and hurt teams. And that is valid. This will be a different type of match against Burnley. But surely Brentford, with Thiago in such good form and Henderson playing well and Schade, the speed of him and the confidence that they would have taken from scoring 3 against Liverpool at home, 3 against United, 3 against Newcastle, surely they'll back themselves to put Burnley to the sword. So, yeah, for me, I can only see one winner here, and I don't think it'll be 1-0. So Brentford over 1.5 is 1.81.
Okay, yeah, like you said, Brentford have had a tough run of fixtures. Big at home, that is, but big game for Keith Andrews to see what he does tactically to try and break down this Burnley team. We're done. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. We'll be back next week to preview
What about
another.
my best bet?
Oh my God, sorry, League On. I had it all in front of me. It's been one of those. It's been one of those days, one of those shows.
You got to be somewhere, Dan.
No, absolutely not. I've nowhere to be, as you well know, Adrian. But Mark, we'll start. We'll lead you in again on this, but League On for you for your best bet. What do you like? Strasbourg to beat Brest.
I do, yeah. So Strasbourg are involved in Europa Conference League action Thursday night, hosting Palace, two of the teams who should be challenging for the title come May. So that's a big game. I'm hoping there's not too much of a hangover, but even sort of countering that into my pricing, I still think they're too big at 1.88 to win this game on Sunday. Under Liam Rosinia, they are starting to develop a habit for turning it on at home and falling gallantly short on their travels. They're 5 wins from 6 at home this season. Their only loss came in the dying seconds against Marseille. All 5 of their home wins have come without conceding a goal, and their underlying metrics and process at home are excellent, second only to Marseille on expected points at home, strip out penalties, and they are top for XG4, top for XG against, 2.26 expected goals on average in front of their own supporters, 25 big chances created in 6 home games, and they've conceded a league low of 6 in that same sample. So Marseille and Lille have already been there, so the challenge has been there, and they're still creating opportunities and limiting their opposition too. They're 6 from 6 against the bottom half, they have 5 clean sheets in that same sample. And now they host Brest, who are 14th. They failed to score in 5 of 7. They needed a stoppage time penalty to beat second bottom Metz at home last weekend. So they're struggling in the final third, and they're also struggling defensively too. They've conceded multiple goals in 8 of 13. They've shipped 3 goals or more in 4 meetings with top 6 teams, as well as in half of their away games. They've lost 4 of 6 away. They are creating the 5th lowest expected goals figure away, conceding the 4th most, second fewest shots on target, big chances. And now they're going to one of the most difficult away days in the division. So Rosinia has been there since the start of last season. In 23 home Ligue 1 matches, Strasbourg have won 15 times, 65%, and that would imply odds of around 1.53. We are getting 1.88. In that 23-game sample, they have averaged 2 goals per game. Brest, in the same period, have lost 14 of 23 away games, giving up 2.17 goals per game. They don't travel well. So happy to be with Strasbourg at 1.88 to win the game.
Was that worth the wait? I hope so. I hope so. My thanks to Mark. My thanks to Adrian. We're done. We'll be back next week chatting more Premier League, but enjoy the weekend's football. If you're having a bet, make sure it enhances that enjoyment, as we always say. Make sure you do so responsibly. Enjoy the weekend once again. We'll chat to you guys next week. Bye-bye.